Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Emma. I have another book haul because why wouldn't I? All of these, except for the exception, that is the first book I'm going to mention, I did find thrifted. And if you've been watching my channel, you know that's basically how I acquire all my books and clothing and literally everything in my life. I always love going to thrift store and finding classics because those are basically the most stacked shelves at book thrift stores I find are the classics, and they're literally just like $1 and it's free real estate. So they are all thrifted. They are all classics like the title suggests, and I just thought I'd go through, maybe give you guys some ideas or like what you can find at the thrift store or classics that you maybe want to pick up. There are a lot of also kind of classical studies books in here as well, which is really great because I literally think like a classics graduate or someone who had just finished their master's or maybe their PhD or maybe they just graduated with their bachelor's and was like, I don't want these books in my life anymore. I literally found a whole shelf of classical studies books, like histories, myths, literally everything, letters, and it was phenomenal. So I kind of bought the whole shelf. But without further ado, let us get into the books. So the first book I do want to mention that wasn't thrifted actually is a gift from my beautiful, wonderful friend Carolyn, but she gave me War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. I have been wanting to read this monster for such a long time and I'm so excited. I think we're gonna do it together, and like I've said before, there are some plans maybe coming out sometime soon. I actually have no idea. I'm gonna call her tonight, which I'm really excited about. But getting off topic, she gave me War and Peace. I actually confess that I have no idea what War and Peace is about. I've only read Anna Karenina, and this will be a journey that I will take. It is set during the kind of turbulent, changing time of the Napoleonic Wars and the French invasion of Russia, and knowing Tolstoy, it will just probably be a huge exploration of everyone's life in this book, as Anna was and everything like that. I think it deals a lot with their fortune and obviously times change and how people react to that, and different times of obviously war and peace. So it is a massive floppy boy and I'm very excited about it. It is 1,300 pages long. I'm not really scared of it anymore because I've read Anna, which was very, very long, and if you are scared to get into huge classics or read Tolstoy or something, I was kind of intimidated, but really it's so accessible, it's so easy to follow, and it's really not hard at all. So thank you so much, Carolyn. Again, I adore it. It's beautiful. This is the Oxford World's Classics edition, if you were wondering. Thank you in Russian.
Спасибо. Спасибо.
Spasiba. Alright, moving right into the thrifted goods. The first book I picked up was The Lady of the Camellias by Alexandre Dumas Fils. So I have heard really nothing about this, but when I shared this on Instagram, so many people messaged me saying that it was actually one of their favorite classics ever and that it is so beautiful and intricately just like pleasing to read, if that makes sense. It has been called one of the greatest love stories in the world. So we are following this woman whose name is Marguerite, and she's kind of known to everyone as the Lady of the Camellias because she is literally never seen without her favorite flowers somewhere on her person or somewhere around her, and she's just kind of really associated with the flowers that she comes to wear all of the time. Everyone is enamored with her. She's basically, I don't know, she kind of seems to me like the female version of Dorian Gray, where everyone is just obsessed with her, wants to be her, falls in love with her, but she's never actually fallen in love herself until one day she meets this man whose name is Armand, and they fall in love. I don't know if this is a tragedy. I really like going into classics not knowing anything, which is becoming a harder and harder task as people obviously talk about classics so much. Most of classics plots to me are known whether I've read them or not, but this is an exception and I want to keep it that way. So I'm really, really excited to read this. It's also such a beautiful cover, so that is the first one I picked up. Alright, so for this next one, I've kind of tried to shuffle around the kind of literature classics and the classical studies classics so that if you don't like one or the other, you'll get kind of, you know, a mixed variety in here. So the next guy I found is actually Histories of Sallust. This one contains the Catalans War, the Jugurthine War, and just his histories that he wrote. He is one of the, I think he is the earliest Roman historian with kind of a complete works, a list of works to his name. He was born around 86 BC, died somewhere around 35. He is kind of the younger contemporary of Cicero, Pompey, Caesar. He was also a senator of the Roman Republic, and that is how he comes to know about Catalan's War, which was a conspiracy that took place within the Senate, so he details that, which is really interesting. The Jugurthine War was one that took place in Africa, and then his histories during the time that he is alive, obviously very close to the Republic of Rome's demise and stuff like that, so that'll be really interesting to see. But I love Roman historians. They are so funny, most of them, and just really, really interesting as well, so I'm really glad that I found Sallust's work. This next classic that I picked up are actually diaries of someone whose diaries I've read online a little bit, and they're very amazing diaries, to say the least. But the one I found are the diaries of Kafka from 1910 to 1913. So this little guy has 3 years of Kafka's thoughts, and I have flipped through here, read a few of them, and wow, thoughts they are. Some of them is very, very heavy. A lot of it is just so relatable. So many of them are so funny though, because it just talks about his struggle to write, and he'll be like, day wasted, wrote nothing, ate fish. It's just very relatable for anyone who's trying to write a book, and obviously you know the horror and struggle that is writing and your battle against words. Kafka can relate. There's a nice little quote on the back that will maybe try and combat the awfulness and despair that he writes about a little bit in here, but it says, "Don't despair. Not even over the fact that you don't despair. Just when everything seems over with, new forces come marching up, and precisely that means that you are alive." This will definitely be a very interesting read. I haven't read anything of Kafka. Obviously, I've just read quotes and diary entries and random stuff from him, but this will be the first kind of work of his that I'll delve into, which are his diaries, which I don't know if I should start there, but I just might. This next one is another classical studies classic, and that is obviously The Aeneid by Virgil. Very shocking that perhaps I didn't have my own copy of this, but now I do. I found it on that classical studies shelf at the thrift store that someone just cleared out their whole shelf of, so I decided to pick this one up. This is Robert Fitzgerald's translation. If you don't know, the Aeneid is following kind of the events after the fall of Troy during the Trojan War, when the Greeks attacked Troy, besieged the city, and eventually just ran it to the ground. We're following Aeneas, obviously, because it's called the Aeneid, which literally just means the story of Aeneas, as the Iliad literally means the story of Troy, because Troy is also known as Ilion. Anyway, so we're following Aeneas, who actually escapes the Trojan War. I believe he's slinging his father on his back as he's kind of scuttling out of the city like a little bug or something, but he makes it all the way to Rome. Virgil kind of tells the story of how he founds Rome. He founds this new civilization, this new great city, and all of the kind of struggles and everything like that that goes on. I'm very, very excited to read this. I can't wait to just see Virgil's words and writing, because obviously he features hugely in Dante's Inferno, which again is another epic poetry thing, creation. So I found Virgil. This next author is someone that I wouldn't have known existed if it weren't for my English Lit class, but that is actually Seamus Heaney, and I picked up his selected prose called Finders Keepers from 1971 to 2001. I only kind of knew about Seamus Heaney because he translated the Beowulf that I had to work on this year, and we're also going to be reading some of his poetry later on in my Brit Lit class, but I just saw Finders Keepers at the thrift store and I was like, oh, Seamus Heaney, let's pick it up. So this one has a whole bunch of obviously his prose, his essays, maybe some of his journals, I think, and letters as well, which is really cool. He writes a lot on other people, which is nice. There's a lot of essays about T.S. Eliot and Yeats and just literally everything like that. There's everything in this book if you're interested, but yeah, I always love reading authors' kind of essays on other people as well. I think that's really interesting what other people think of other people and how they then kind of explain it and give this new meaning to it, so I think that's going to be a lot in this one as well. Really quickly, I also found a different translation of the Odyssey, which is the one I'm going to need for my Greek epic class. I've talked a lot about it. It's the Lattimore translation. This will be a reread for me once I get into it, but it'll be a whole new world because it's a whole new translation, and I've never read Lattimore's translation of the Odyssey. I'm almost done his translation of the Iliad. It is phenomenal, it's great, and I'm really, really excited I found this. This next author I finally picked up after kind of being scared of him for years and years. I still have yet to read one of his works, which is stupid because I should just do it, but for some reason he is the author I'm most scared to get into, partly because I don't think I'll like him that much and I'm scared I won't, and just because he's so famous and everyone seems to know his works, but little old me has yet to explore any of them. So I found this one. I don't know why I picked this one, just because maybe it kind of says what I think about him, the title of this work, but that is Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. I know, I haven't read any of them. I have never even these are also classics that I literally don't know what goes on in them. I don't know the plots of any of his books at all. Like, not A Tale of Two Cities, not Oliver Twist, not Bleak House. I literally know like all the names, but I don't know what happens. I've never read Charles Dickens. So I just went with Great Expectations because it was one I found at a thrift store. It looked like a pretty good copy. It's very long as well, which is kind of intimidating, but I don't know why I'm so scared of this. I did read the synopsis, so I can tell you. But if you have also not read Great Expectations, we're following this young orphan Pip, and then this like anonymous benefactor, I think, offers him this way out because he's kind of poor and poverty-stricken and miserable, and he offers him a chance to be a gentleman. And the back just says that it deals with the bittersweet understanding of the extent to which our deepest moral dilemmas are born of our own obsessions and illusions. So I am really excited to get into it. I don't know what I'm gonna think. I think this would be a really good summer read for some reason. I don't know. It's also a really nice cover as well, so I'm just excited. I have great expectations for Great Expectations, and we'll see. Then I found The Republic and the Laws by Cicero. I've heard so much about Cicero. He's just such a character. But I'm so happy that I found this, and I just can't wait to read this basically. The Republic was written like a few years before the Republic split and the Civil War that broke it apart, obviously with Augustus and Mark Antony and that whole shebang. Lepidus is in there somewhere. Basically it's his reflections and his time being kind of a consul and what it's like being an ex-consul now, or someone who was in charge of the Roman Republic, or one of the two people who were in charge, and yeah, it's just really interesting. And then The Laws is kind of not really a utopian vision, but maybe some of them are kind of, you know, out there in terms of their success rate and such, but his laws are kind of expounding on the moral, natural laws and everything like that, so I think it'll be really interesting. Cicero's letters are also really fun to read, so that is this guy. I think the shortest little book that I've ever bought is Lady Windermere's Fan by Oscar Wilde. This is a very minuscule play by Oscar Wilde. It's like 50 pages long, but I've never read it and I'm really excited to. I'm very slowly collecting all of Wilde's work because I recently finished Dorian Gray. It became one of my favorite books of all time. That is insane when I can add a new book to that list, to that category on my Goodreads account. And it just did. It was amazing. And I currently have a selection of his letters, and I've read other kind of, I don't know, essays of his and such, but I've never read any of his other substantial works, so I thought I would pick up Lady Windermere's Fan. It's basically just like a Victorian comedy of manners, and we're following Lady Windermere as she's kind of this upright moral character, but kind of to a fault, in all the kind of dalliances and strange things that she gets into with this kind of really strict mindset of code and stuff like that. So I think it'll be really interesting, probably very, very funny, and I'm so excited for his wit. It's just, and his writing too, stunning, so pick this one up. The last classical studies work I'll talk about is The Six Tragedies of Seneca. I've yet to read any Roman plays. I've focused solely on the Greeks, which, like, that's fine, but I am really excited to add this to my shelf and to finally pick it up as kind of one of the Roman playwrights. So in here we have Phaedra, Oedipus, Medea, Trojan Woman, Hercules' Friends, and Thyestes. So it'll be really interesting to see too, like, his take on them as well, because obviously you have the Greeks and then you have the Romans, and it's quite different but also a little bit similar, so I'm really, really excited about this. Seneca is also really interesting too because he was a tutor to the Roman Emperor Nero, who yes, when did he reign from? 54 to 68. He was after Claudius, and Claudius was 40 to 54 because he reigned for a long time. I think Nero was 54. Was he 54 to 68? And then Vespasian was 69 to 79. Titus 79, 81. Really trying to recall some material here, but anyway, he was tutor to Nero, who obviously met his demise, but not before Seneca met his demise at the hands of Nero. I believe Nero actually forced him to kill himself along with his other tutor. I think his name was Burrus, which is very often than not the way how basically death occurs in kind of this system, especially with Nero in place. So, but he's also the only tragic playwright from Rome whose works survive, which is feels so bad, but at least we have him, and I'm really, really excited to get into these 6 plays. To finish this little haul up, I have 3 Shakespeare plays I want to talk about very quickly. They were literally 50 cents, so if you are on a budget, like, you can still read Shakespeare. It's great. So we have The Merchant of Venice. These are all ones that I haven't read. I actually haven't read that many Shakespeare plays in my life. I think I've only read 6 or 7. Maybe 7, I don't know. But I got The Merchant of Venice. I got A Midsummer Night's Dream, which is the Shakespeare play I'm most excited to read. I think it's also Carolyn's, I don't know if it's her favorite play. I know she would want to play the lead role in here the most. This just reminds me of so much magic every time I think of it, and I always think of Dead Poets Society, but I've never actually read it myself. And finally, the last book of this little haul is Macbeth by Shakespeare. I can't believe I've somehow shirked this for my whole life so far and I haven't read it, but this is probably the tragedy that I'm most excited to read as well, and I'm just so excited to get into it. I used to really not get along with Shakespeare. I would complain so loudly every time we were forced to read him, and I think forcing someone to read a book definitely like kills that excitement and makes them come to loathe it. But when you kind of have your own time and you feel like you want to dip back into a certain author, for me it was Shakespeare, I just enjoyed it so immensely, and like I'm so excited to read this now. So that is Macbeth. Alright, those are all the classic books that I've picked up so far. I'm just so blessed that I keep finding these cool little nuggets of literature at the thrift store. I'd really recommend going thrift shopping for everything you need in your life ever. But yeah, thank you so much for being here. It's a really nice day. There's little birds on my balcony right now. They're just twittering away. But anyway, yeah, I hope you're great wherever you are and that you have a really good day and that you read some good books, because life is short and you should read the good books only. Not that I'm saying these are good books, because I have no formulated opinions on them yet, but you know what I mean. But I will see you in the next video. Ciao.